Well, I hope they get a sense of what a character she is. I mean, she is, as I said, she's 98 years old. She is actually going to be here in Rockford on the 21st when we launch this book here in Rockford. She has worked her whole life from nothing. I mean, beyond poor as a kid. That was during the Depression. So, her family, like every other family, was hit hard. But she constantly was part of baseball, part of the game, played competitive baseball, also professional softball. And so what I want people to see is that this is a woman who absolutely has turned her life into helping to create opportunities for girls and women.
Welcome to the Rockford Public Library podcast. This is Lara, your host, and today we have Dr. Kat Williams, who is joining us today. She is a distinguished historian specializing in U.S. women's history and the history of sports. She is a former professor of history at Marshall University in West Virginia. Dr. Williams has authored several significant works. The All-American Girls After the AAGPBL, How Playing Pro Ball Shaped Their Lives, Isabel Lefty Alvarez, The Improbable Life of a Cuban-American Baseball Star, and All the Way, The Life of a Baseball Trailblazer, Maybelle Blair. Beyond her academic contributions, Dr. Williams is deeply committed to preserving and promoting women's baseball history. She is the CEO and a founding member of the International Women's Baseball Center, otherwise known as the IWBC, an organization dedicated to celebrating and advancing women's participation in baseball. Through her teaching, scholarship, and advocacy, Dr. Williams has played a pivotal role in highlighting the achievements and experiences of women in sports. So congratulations on the upcoming publication of your book, All the Way.
Thank you.
The Life of Baseball Trailblazer Maybelle Blair. So All the Way is your second biography of a player from AAGPBL.
That is a mouthful. Yes, yes.
And so... and you also wrote about Isabel Lefty Alvarez. Mm-hmm. So why is it so important to tell these stories of these women? Right.
Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me. This is it's very exciting to talk about this book. This book has been a labor of love and a long time coming. Maybelle Blair is also a very dear friend of about 25 years, as was Lefty Alvarez. And so the answer to your question is multifaceted. I first met many of the women who played in the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League in 2003 when I attended their 60th anniversary reunion. And immediately I was overwhelmed. I was in awe. They became just important people in my life. Lefty's story is, as a Cuban immigrant, she came to the United States at age 15 alone.
Wow.
Spoke no English, and played professional baseball. And her father was a supporter of Batista in Cuba, and her brother fought with Castro.
Okay.
And that gives you an idea of the kind of life we're talking about. So Maybelle's life was not quite like that, but if you read the book, you'll find it was full of all kinds of other adventures. And so it's important to tell their stories as human beings, their stories as this is their life, this is what they did. But through every single piece, there is a thread. And that thread is baseball, sport, what it did for them, how it helped them to overcome difficulties. In Lefty's case, coming to the United States at age 15 and what playing that sport and having that team connection.
What year is this?
She came to the U.S. in 48.
Okay.
1948. And And so the All-American Girls League was in existence from 1943 to 1954. So, and then Maybelle played in 1948. But for both of them, as I say, that thread is sport. And it was for me as a kid growing up. And it was quite literally a lifeline for me. And those stories resonate for me. And when if I speak to a group of students, for example, or some teams or whatever, I start to tell my story, or I start to talk about their stories and the role of sport and the role of baseball in their lives and helping them. It's like little light bulbs going off all around the room. Yeah, I get it. I get it. And so that's why. It's to tell their story as baseball figures, but it's not just one of those biographies where here's your batting average, here are your stats, and I was great second baseman, or I was a great pitcher, or what. It's almost the baseball itself is almost secondary. And so if folks read the Maybelle Blair book, you'll find that she spent her entire life. She's 98 years old, and she's still going strong. Okay. Her entire life is about creating baseball opportunities for girls, first for herself and the girls that she grew up with, and now it's for girls playing the game today. And the same was true for Lefty. Lefty died a few years ago.
Okay.
So that is a very long-winded answer to your question, but it's not just a simple answer.
Yeah. So let's give some context to Maybelle Blair. Like, how is she significant to Rockford?
Well, she is significant to Rockford in that she was one of the founding members of the International Women's Baseball Center. We were founded in 2014, and literally sitting around a table at her house in California over pizza and beer. We all threw in about $20, and we created the IWBC because we knew there was a gaping hole. There was a place where somebody needed to step up. In 2016, someone contacted us and said, hey, you all have any interest in some old property across the street from Bayer Stadium in Rockford, Illinois? And we're like, sure. So we came here on a very cold day in November of 2015. And from that day until this, Rockford has opened its arms to the IWBC and to Maybelle Blair. And she was not a Rockford Peach, but she played for Peoria Red Wings and played against the Rockford Peaches. She very famously says, I hated the Rockford Peaches. And I said, yeah, because they always beat you. And she said, yes. So that is her connection to Rockford. For neither of us have lived here, but we have that historical connection with the Peaches. And then also, we've made this the home of the IWBC, so it is an extremely important place to us personally and professionally.
And so why did you make it the home of the IWBC?
Well, when we first created the organization, we didn't necessarily have in mind, we need to have a place in this location or that location. But when we were contacted and someone said, there's a place there's some property across the street from Bayer Stadium, we all looked at one another and went, oh, my God, it has to be Rockford. We just weren't thinking. And so it was divine intervention, or however you want to think about it. It was somebody said, here's a possibility. And we got here and we became more and more familiar with not just the Peaches, but Rockford is known as the cradle of baseball. And there was the Forest City Nine. There are connections to Ross Barnes and connections to Spalding, of Spalding Sporting Goods. This town has a deep, deep connection to baseball.
Wow.
It's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Right?
I had no idea.
Yeah, most people don't, right? So it's for all of those reasons. And we have, on occasion, we have been asked, would you consider building it X someplace else? And I said, not as long as there is a breath in me. Now, the rest of our board may disagree with me, but that's my opinion.
So with Maybelle, how was she as an interview subject?
Oh, my God. Well, you need to meet Maybelle Blair. Okay. I don't even know how to explain Maybelle Blair. She was more than just an interview subject. Mm-hmm. We first met in 2004, and this is a opening story of the book. It was my second reunion of the AAGPBL, and I'm standing in the lobby surrounded by all these former ball players, and they're chatting and laughing and talking, and I'm standing there like, and as you can tell, I'm not generally sort of shy, but I was standing there like a wallflower, almost afraid to speak to these women. And they were all talking and laughing, and all of a sudden, there's an escalator right in the center of the lobby of the hotel, and coming down the escalator was this vivacious, laughing, gray-haired, sunglasses-wearing woman, and everybody's hollering up to her, "Hey, Maybelle, how'd they get you out of the casino?" Just all kind. And I looked up in there, and it was Maybelle Blair. Uh-huh. I didn't know her, mm-hmm. and she came down and immediately was, engaged in telling stories or whatever, and they were finished talking, and then a bunch of them walked off. They were going to the hotel bar. And she turned around and looked at me, and she said, "Are you coming?" And I said, "Sure." And I've been following her ever since. She is a very, very dear friend. But her story and her dedication to women and girls in sports is second to none, and it's contagious.
So what do you think, why is it important for women, girls to be involved in sports?
How much time do we have on that? First of all, it is important and on a very fundamental level that there's the physical and health-related benefits of it. But for most girls, most people, that's kind of secondary. But you learn a lot of lessons by playing sports. You learn about teamwork. You learn about winning and losing, and you gain confidence, and it's empowering. Mm-hmm. One of the statistics that I think guides me still is that of all the women in the upper echelon positions of Fortune 500 companies, 87% played organized sports.
Oh,
that is not a coincidence.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and it's also Title IX was passed in 1972, which meant that girls and women had to have equal opportunities in sports, and that it does other things as well. But sports that's mostly the thing that people associate with Title IX. After the passage of Title IX, girls' participation in sports, and I'm talking girls, not women, rose 800%.
Wow. And
then the important number connected to that, teenage pregnancy went down drastically.
Wow.
Yeah. It's there, and we can spout all the statistics, but it's the stuff that I see every single day. Mm-hmm. It's the stuff I experienced as a kid, as a girl growing up on the wrong side of the tracks, quite literally, very poor, and pre-Title IX, I had an undiagnosed learning disability. I couldn't read till I was in the third grade. I might as well have had "bully me" tattooed across my forehead. School was terrible. It was awful. It was painful. And then I got home, and I went out into the street, and I played baseball with the boys. And right then, those same boys making fun of me, they didn't make fun of me then because I was a good ball player. Yeah. In fact, I was sought after. And so there was a moment, there was a marker where I was good. I was good at something. And so it was like a placeholder that allowed me to be good, feel good, until I could figure out how to be good elsewhere. And I think that's true for a lot of girls. And so that's the important part, right? And Maybelle gets that too. I mean, most of us do. And so it's not about whether or not that player is going to become professional or play in the World Cup or play, but it's about what it does for those kids. And it is my life work to make sure that a lot of kids don't have to go through what I went through. And I think you would find, if you asked Maybelle, she'd say the same thing.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Like, I love sports. I played tennis in high school.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So I was on the varsity team.
Good for you.
So for me, like what you were saying makes a lot of sense. And just like how it like focuses, your focus is different. It's and it builds resilience.
Absolutely.
And your hope, like the competition.
Yeah.
It's such a nice form of competition and the team building.
Yes.
And I think that's something we don't have enough of.
No, I think
today.
that's right. I think that's right. And it's and whether you would agree or not, it seems to me from an outsider looking at you that played a big role in being the successful woman you are today. And I think that just giving girls that opportunity. It's not going to be for everyone. It's not going to work the same way for everyone. It's not going to become their lifelong passion, maybe, but it will have an impact. And then there's also every single thing I do has a foundation of fairness. And for me, it's also just about fairness.
Okay. Back to Maybelle.
Yeah.
What do you hope readers take away from the book on Maybelle?
Well, I hope they get a sense of what a character she is. I mean, she is, as I said, she's 98 years old. She is actually going to be here in Rockford on the 21st when we launch this book here in Rockford. She has worked her whole life from nothing. I mean, beyond poor as a kid. That was during the Depression. So, her family, like every other family, was hit hard. But she constantly was part of baseball, part of the game, played competitive baseball, also professional softball. And so what I want people to see is that this is a woman who absolutely has turned her life into helping to create opportunities for girls and women, and mostly on a baseball diamond, but not just that. And so she is the biggest supporter and cheerleader of girls and women playing baseball today. And many of the girls and women playing today will tell you, we could fill this room full of those young women who would tell you, Maybelle Blair is my hero. They get it. They see we all stand on her shoulders. And it's not just her. She'd be the first to tell you, Kat, I didn't do this by myself. But I want people to get a sense of who she is as a person. She is hysterically funny, for one thing. The other thing is she's not had the easiest life. She was in the closet until just a couple of years ago. At age 97, or I'm sorry, 95, she came out on the Tribeca Film Festival stage. That has how she lived through the Red Scare of the 1950s, bar raids of the 1950s. And now here she is at 98 years old. She's not only a star in the world of women's sports, but now there are generations of girls and women and young boys who can say, oh my God, she had to live like that for 95 years.
Wow.
And now she's willing to step up and say, you know what? Don't do that. Don't live like that. Be yourself. Be who you are. Be you. And that, to me, is one of the most important messages.
And you had mentioned the base. Well, let me think about this. How about, can you tell us more about women's professional baseball? And
Sure. Yes, absolutely. There are... we do not have professional baseball in this country.
Okay.
We have a national team, the USA Women's National Team, but that is not considered professional. It's kind of, think about the Olympics. It's that kind of competition. Now, there are some countries around the world who do have professional leagues. Japan is the single best women's baseball program in the world. Now, some other countries might disagree with me, but in my opinion, and Australia, some other countries have professional women's baseball, but there are national teams in 35 countries, including the U.S. Now, every 3 years, the World Baseball Softball Confederation, the WBSC, puts on a Women's Baseball World Cup.
Okay.
And now, most of the people in the U.S. don't think of baseball tournaments as being cups, but this is an international organization. And the WBSC hosts all baseball and softball World Cups, all ages, both men and women. And the IWBC, in partnership with Go Rockford, the Park District, the Rivets, Rockford University, we have submitted a bid to host the Women's Baseball World Cup here in Rockford. The first group stages would be in the summer of 26, and the finals would be in the summer of 27. We would be bringing 12 different countries to play baseball here in Rockford, what we call the cradle of women's baseball. And so that is huge.
Yeah.
It is so huge. And we won't know for another month or so if our bid is successful. But I want to point out that Justine Siegel, who is a founder of an organization called Baseball for All, and also just an incredibly important character player in the world of women's baseball. She is a partner with some other folks in creating a new women's pro baseball league that is hopefully going to start next year, and that is professional.
Wow.
I know.
Okay.
I'm very proud to say I'm on the advisory council. I'm not really advising them of anything. I think but I'm happy to be included. So that would be professional baseball in the U.S., and it would be the first time since the Peaches played in the 1940s.
Wow. And would that have, in every state, possibly?
No, they will start out small. What they're hoping to do is, right now, start out with a sort of group of teams in the Northeast, because that's where they have contacts.
Okay.
I am trying to convince them, however, that you really can't have a women's pro team without having a team in Rockford.
Yeah.
So, so I don't know. Again, it's not as if I have any real pull, right? But I am. I think the Midwest is ripe for that kind of thing. So that would be professional baseball. The World Cup is not considered professional baseball, but it is the best women's baseball on the planet, and we are very likely to get it right here in Rockford.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm really excited for that to happen.
Yes. Oh, me too. Believe me. Me too. Me too.
So I will keep my ears perked and my eyes open.
You will hear me screaming. We will have press releases rolling out all over the place. And so, like I said, it may be a month, it may be 6 weeks, something like that. But we'll know fairly soon, and we'll make sure that, that we get the word out.
Okay.
Because we're going to be calling on all you listeners out there to be volunteers.
And is there anything else you'd like to mention that we haven't covered today?
About the book?
Yeah,
or
about the book.
Well, the thing is, this book took me, even though I've known Maybelle since, what seems like forever, it took me a long time to write. And when you see it, you're going to be like, Kat, how did it take you that long? It's a little book. But that was kind of the point. We wanted the book to be accessible. The publisher was very clear. You may be a historian, but I don't want a 500-page biography with, 100 footnotes. It is accessible. It is a good story. Mm-hmm. And you will be introduced to one of the single most important figures in the history of women's baseball through this book. And it is mostly her voice. I add context, obviously, but it is mostly her voice and her stories. And so I hope that folks will read it and take in the information. The book, as I said, is a labor of love for me. Mm-hmm. And it took me a while to write it, in part because I didn't feel worthy of writing it. I didn't feel like I could do justice to the story of Maybelle Blair. And, you know, maybe I have, maybe I haven't. That's for readers to decide. But I think it tells her story in a way that shows determination and grit and truly what a remarkable woman she is.
I love that. And I love that you are platforming like women's stories.
Oh, yeah.
Because there isn't a lot of her story.
No.
There's a lot of his story.
That's exactly right. Yes. As a professional historian, I can tell you that is right. That is right. Yeah.
So I hope you'll write more books.
Well, actually, I have already a contract for the next one.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Can you share?
Well, I can only say that it is also a biography, but it is about a woman named Edith Houghton.
Okay.
She was not part of the All-Americans.
Okay.
Yeah, as soon as we get this one on the shelves, I'll start writing that one.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
So we have ordered your book, and it should be available for checkout as soon as it comes out.
Okay.
So we are very excited to host your book launch party.
Yes.
So, and I just asked you this, but about what your next book is going to be about, which is exciting.
Yeah.
So I just want to thank you today for coming
you.
in.
Thank you.
And so to our listeners, Kat's book is All the Way, The Life of Baseball Trailblazer Maybelle Blair, comes out on March 18th. So RPL is hosting a book launch party in the J.R. Sullivan Theater on Friday, March 21st from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. And we are planning on Maybelle attending.
Yes, we are.
And Kat will talk about her book, ask Maybelle some questions, and then we will have a reception with refreshments. Her book will be available for purchase and signing at the event.
Absolutely. Yes.
Will it be... will you be doing an Audible or?
You know, I'm not sure of that. That is kind of generally if the publisher wants that.
Okay.
You know, and I haven't inquired. So I would like to do that. I think it's important to have that option.
Yeah.
So, but we're not sure. It obviously on Kindle, but you know, I'm an old-fashioned girl. I want to have the hard copy in my hand. So I'm pretty excited about getting that into the hands of people.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yep.
Well, thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.